Welcome, it's Alex, and today I'm breaking down the juicier side of the gameplay mechanics in New World. Now you might think the combat system is pretty straight to the point in this, swing your weapons and use some abilities, but it also has extra nuggets of depth planted into it that will separate the good players from the great ones. I'm going to be showing you how to do some of those advanced mechanics that will give you an edge in battle, and these will not require you to have a beefy high-level character or anything, so these tactics will be useful right from the very start of the game. Some attacks have a decent amount of ending lag before you can freely move or attack again. However, you can cancel out of their animations at any moment with use of one of your lovely weapon skills. Ideally, you need to learn the timing of your weapon's attack animations for when they actually pop damage, and right in that moment is when you should be triggering an ability skill cancel. If you do this right, you can get in a quick regular strike and cancel the second half of its animation right into a skill, which makes for 2 quick shots of damage. This is done to greater effect the more precise you can cancel out of that first attack without doing it too early, so you need to actually pay attention and learn your weapon's moveset. Attack canceling can speed up your PvE combat quite a bit, or maybe surprise your target in PvP with a quick shot of DPS. You may or may not have noticed that your weapon likely has a heavy attack and a charged heavy attack. A charged heavy attack is done by holding down left click for the entirety of the animation windup, which is dealing 282 here. However, just a normal heavy attack is done by briefly holding the button for just a fraction of a second longer than a normal mouse click. This is a faster version of the previous attack and is hitting for 215 on that same enemy. Now, something else that can be done with your heavy attacks, which will really only be useful in PvP, is using it to perform attack feints to throw off your opponent. Using the attack canceling mechanic, you can activate a skill to cancel out of the long, obvious charging heavy attack animation to bait your enemy into trying to get in a quick hit, dodge, or hold up a block. If you trick someone into attacking or blocking on purpose, keep in mind that your skills that flash your character white are usually also really strong at breaking through block and are less likely to be interrupted. Although this little trick is primarily for player versus player, you can also make effective use of it in PvT as well. Hitting enemies in their vulnerable back bits does improve the damage you inflict. This doesn't just apply to your first sneaky hit on them, and most any time you can hit someone in the back, it will also be dealing increased damage. If you use a lot of stuns in your build or just move around a lot during combat, you'll likely have more opportunities for backstab crit hits. Since I'm already talking about vulnerable bits, if you use your bow or rifle, you can also make use of headshot damage, which hits a bit harder if you nail your shots in the noggin. Using both of your weapon skills right when they're recharged is a big deal in New World, so you will need to know when all those cooldowns are being refreshed. If you head into Settings and then the Gameplay tab, you can turn on Always Show Weapons. This allows you to see both your weapon's skill bars and recharge timers at all times, which will greatly assist when knowing when it's the right time to swap over. There is also the Show Extra Ability Cooldowns option, which puts recharge timers closer to your character, but it only shows those for your current weapon, so I recommend the other option before implementing that one. Here's a quick little tip for the gun if you're using any of the skills that load up your rifle with a specialized bullet. You can activate one of those way before heading into a fight to have it already prepped up to go even after the skill has fully recharged. This means you can fire that skill, immediately load in another charge of that same shot, and get in 2 quick pops of its effects. Now, something quick for the bow. If you're using Penetrating Shot or Poison Shot, those both quickly cancel out of your attack animations and into each other, allowing for a quick triple shot burst of DPS. You fire a regular shot, cancel the ending leg of that with one of those 2 skills, and then cancel the ending of that animation with the other skill. Now for the staff, this one is more of a personal preference, but I tend to misplace my AoEs more often by taking the time to move around that ground targeting reticule. Instead, if you double tap an active skill quickly, it will immediately fire right at wherever your crosshair currently is placed, which I found to improve the entire process. The ice gauntlets have the Ice Pylon skill, which functions as a stationary turret that can be placed to help you do a bit more DPS, or even draw aggro away from yourself. This is a good assist if you primarily prefer combat with just one of the other weapons. It's highly recommended you fully utilize both your weapons, but this is a decent middle ground for when you maybe only prefer one. So you know that shield slot in your inventory? Well, having one equipped, even if you're not wielding a sword, will impact your character's equipment load. Here, for example, taking off that shield is the difference between my character being classified as the medium or lightweight. When you are lighter, you get a slight damage boost and your dodge changes to a much faster and further roll. Pretty straightforward. Take off that shield if you're not using it, unless you're trying to increase the weight of your character, since there are benefits to doing that as well. You have blocking and dodging at your disposal, but you need to know when to do the right one. Blocking is incredibly strong in New World since it completely negates normal damage, sapping your stamina gauge instead. That usually consumes far less stamina than going for a risky dodge you may or may not even time correctly. However, blocking will not help you avoid spell or range damage, and you'll still receive debuffs while blocking, so dodging definitely still has its uses. If your stamina gets depleted while blocking, you will go into a brief stun state, so try to dodge instead at the very last second in that type of situation before your block is broken. That will hopefully get you out of the way and let the stamina gauge regenerate without that penalty. If you see an enemy going for a big hit or a grid attack, which is indicated by the character flashing white, make sure to dodge those since they will take a huge chunk out of your stamina if you try to block them. When hitting your target, you will notice the damage numbers appear in different colors. If they're in white, the damage you're doing is just average, like using a thrust type weapon against this enemy type. If the number is in blue, that means they are resistant to that damage type, like using a sword on that same guy. However, using the hammer on these dudes gives us the nice yellow numbers, indicating that you're exploiting their weakness. This applies to not only melee damage types, but also to elemental damage from spells as well. Now, if you see a damage pop up that is orange, that means you're hitting a squishy weak point on the target like the head or back. Congrats! And with all of that, those are the general things I found to be most impactful when tackling New World's combat. I know a lot of this was kinda melee weapon focused for the most part, so for those spellcasters and range players out there, I need your assistance down in the comments. If you have figured out some combat tricks of your own, some unique synergies, or anything weirdly interesting, put them down there and I'll tag them for everyone else to see. Thanks. Now, if you happen to enjoy my channel's focus on digging into gameplay mechanics and systems, well, that is what Boomstick Gaming is all about, so consider sticking around. As always, this has been Alex. I appreciate you watching this all the way up to the very end. If you're on one of the other factions, I will try to kill you, and I'll see you next time.